Started because we're already running a little behind. The first item on the agenda, are there any requests for bill introductions this morning? All right, I'm not seeing any. So first, we're going to have a presentation on the state of agriculture. And so I'd ask the Secretary from the Kansas Department of Agriculture, Secretary Mike Beam, to address the committee. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the opportunity. I'll have a few PowerPoint slides. It's basically going to go along with a statement that says, it's got our letterhead at the top. It says State of Kansas Agriculture Testimony and today's date. So there'll be a few slides that will interject with the comments. I would also draw your attention to, there's reference to several addendums, and that looks like this colorful handout here, so there'll be, again, some reference to the page numbers in that. But I like to tell folks that agriculture makes a major contribution to our state's economy. If you look at 74 food and ag sectors, that combines for $63.6 billion direct output. And those top sectors are in that economic contribution report that I just referred to. That indirect and induced economic impact would be $85 billion and 235,000 jobs. So about 15% of the state's workforce are devoted to those 74 sectors that we classify as food and agriculture. I got ahead of myself. Okay. So not only are we a major economic player in the state, but we do rank quite high nationwide. We rank 7th in the nation in total value of ag production. And much of that comes from the southwest part of the state. And I have this slide up, and there is a reference to the slide in the handout. But if you look at the heat map of the state of Kansas, where the heat map on a county-by-county basis, the darker colors indicate where the higher value of ag production exists in the state. And then there's a blue squiggly line in the western third of the state that comes over into the middle of the state. Everything west of that squiggly line is basically the High Plains Aquifer. So I like to show that comparison because there's no doubt that the High Plains Aquifer, the Ogallala Aquifer, the groundwater supply has a big bearing on the economic engine, agriculture economic engine in the state, particularly if you look at the western part of the state. That's one reason that the future of agriculture really depends heavily on the High Plains Aquifer, and has been a top priority of many of you in here and the past 2 governors. It's also a priority for local governments, groundwater management districts, rural residents, even local businesses across the state. So the enhanced investments that you've made in last year's establishment of the Water Task Force are critical steps, but now we still need to focus on long-term strategic plan. We need to continue to work on programs and policies that ensure future generations have the same opportunities and the quality of life that we've experienced in the past. As Governor Kelly said in her State of the State, the future of our entire state is dependent upon the actions that we take today and in the next few years. From an economic impact on agriculture as a whole, ag economy, crop prices were, as many of you know, were quite depressed this year, starting last year. And this is due to several factors. There's been a lot of changes in international trade opportunities. There's been some trade barriers, some stalls on agreements. There's been extremely high yields, which contributes to the supply, and we have much competition from other countries who are continuing to increase their production. On the other hand, in just the opposite contrast is livestock prices. And there are charts in the addendum that show the price levels in recent times for these various commodities. And you will see on the livestock side that we've had substantial rallies in price levels, which has been probably the bright spot in agriculture from an economic standpoint. Our inventory continues to decline. The last report was 5.95 million head of cattle. And so we have fewer cattle, although a lot of those cattle are producing more meat than historic levels. But consumers seem to still enjoy and prefer the product. So we think we'll continue to have high prices here in the next few years. In fact, some of the auction markets across the state continue to each week to record the highest level of sale price value that they've ever sold at that market. If you look at ag exports, the slide that has says ag exports in 25. We don't have all of the data for 2025. We're still waiting for the fourth quarter of the year. But you'll see that our beef and beef products and corn and some of those other commodities are a higher level. But ag exports is basically 34% of all exports from the state of Kansas. So agriculture exports is a big part of our international marketing. As illustrated in that graph, from January to October 25, we've had some strength and increase. We're always working on the trade relationships, supporting our commodity groups, supporting our USDA's efforts and others to continue to build, increase market opportunities. There was price pressures that we've seen this year because of some of the geopolitical issues that we've had and so forth that have caused some uncertainty. Our biggest purchaser, one of our biggest purchaser is China, and they of course have been not very aggressive at all until recently, but we rely heavily on Mexico and Canada, and they've continued to be very, very important partners when it comes to exports. Again, when we have the final data for 2025, we'll be able to provide that full 2025 export data for you. So let's talk a little bit about animal disease response. We've been responding to a significant outbreak of high pathogenic avian influenza since 2022. In Kansas, we've seen positive cases usually in the winter months, particularly December, January. That's true again for 2025 and 2026. We had 13 cases that we had to address since December 15th alone. Although there's been a little bit of media attention to this, this is quite typical to have those cases. But at this time, you'll see on this map that we have 3 counties with a control area under quarantine, another 7 counties with an infected premise still under quarantine. But each time we had one of these outbreaks, our animal health team, with some assistance from, in some cases, USDA's team, have been on site to do the depopulation and disposal in an approved manner. In fact, our crew worked long days on Christmas Eve day and New Year's Eve day. It's kind of an in-house joke that if we're getting ready to have a holiday, that's when we'll have a case, it seems like. But I'm proud of the work that they've done and working with folks that try to get those infected flocks disposed of as quick as possible. Really, this is spread by the waterfowl. And so that's the thing that we stress is if you have domestic poultry, any kind, that could be game birds, backyard chickens, commercial poultry, the best thing you can do is everything to keep the wild waterfowl away from or out of those premises. A few years ago, we did have this in dairies. We haven't seen that in recent years. But I will tell you that we continue, along with other states, to test milk that goes, bulk milk samples, to monitor the presence of that in the dairy industry. We spend a lot of time with animal disease, and consequently, we think it's very important that the agency always do the planning for emergency response. And for the 12th year, we've had a multi-day emergency training exercise. This year, the event was called Embers, and we focused on what if we had foot and mouth disease here in Kansas. In fact, even if we had it in the United States, there would be an impact that we would need to plan for. We get a lot of support and participation from other agencies in Kansas. If you think about addressing something this big, you have Department of Transportation, Health and Environment, Highway Patrol. There's a whole host of state agencies. We get some participation by federal agencies. We have the private sector that shows up to learn about the situation. So there's a whole host of people that are involved in this, and it's very heartening to know that we're always tweaking and improving on our plan, and of course in hopes that we never have to activate it. But we think it's important because of the size and scope of the industry that if we had something like this, it would be pretty major economic impact. Let me touch just a little bit on dairy, a bright spot. On December 23rd, USDA released information that showed that we have 225,000 milk cows in the state. That's up from 180,000 in 2024. That means we're now the 14th ranked state as far as dairy production. The first time in many years, we've typically been around that 16 and 18. But these 125 grade A dairies are producing over 4.5 billion pounds of milk. And that doesn't include December numbers. So when we get to December numbers, you'll see that it will greatly exceed the 4.2 billion pounds for 2024. This is primarily due to demand, and it's also due to Hilmer's cheese plant that's now in operation in Dodge City. A lot of these dairies have expanded to meet that demand, and we actually have a new dairy in the state that is built as a result of this increased value-added opportunity in southwest Kansas. We are still finishing up the management of a grant program from USDA. It's called the Resilient Food Systems Infrastructure Program. This is basically to help entities in the middle of the food chain with a high focus on, local and regional food entities. But we've utilized $6.46 million in 2023 through this cooperative agreement with USDA. That supported 49 projects. The second round was 21 equipment grants only that was awarded last year. But these support a lot of small businesses who are trying to get into the food business with very expensive startup costs, especially when you look at equipment. So this has been helpful for new startup commercial kitchens with all the equipment that you'll need, with stainless steel tables, with mixers, cold storage, even some grain milling equipment in some cases, honey processing equipment. The picture I'm showing here is one, I think, within the last week or so, where there was a grant awarded to a commercial kitchen in Salina that's going to help start up food entities. And so this has been quite successful. This will come to an end. The projects are supposed to be completed by December of this year. But again, this was a USDA grant program that we participated in. The last thing I might mention is another project that we've been involved with this year. A lot of people probably aren't aware of the role that grasslands play in the state. We think about our farmland acres, and sometimes we're the #1 state as far as farmland acres. but we have a significant number, over 15 million acres of native grasslands that support our beef industry and also provide lots of wildlife habitat. So at the urging of some of the ranchers, we started a project of going through focus group meetings across the state, focusing on these 4 main grassland areas. We've had over 50 of them that are participated in that input. We've had a survey that over 200 people participated in, and we're finalizing a report in conjunction with Kansas Association of Conservation Districts that will have some recommendations for folks who want to help address some of the biggest threats we have to grassland. Interesting enough, one of the major issues that's identified in this is our continued invasion of woody species or trees in our grasslands. And one of the scientists who studies this has indicated that in a year's time, we have lost enough grassland to support 157,000 cows in this state. That's how fast that this green glacier is moving across our grasslands. So I think it'll be a welcome report and one that hopefully will shed some light on this issue. Let me just conclude, Mr. Chair, that I've enjoyed my role as secretary. I've had a lot of support, and I'm especially proud of our staff, some of the leadership teams here this morning, and I want to thank all of our team here publicly for their help. They're, of course, responsible for much of the information that you see and the work that we do on a day-to-day basis. Thank you for what you do each day for Kansans and the state of Kansas, and I'd be happy to respond to any questions if appropriate.
All right, thank you, Secretary Beam, and I want to say I'll commend you on your tenure as the Secretary of Agriculture. I know when I have needed assistance, namely with the 4-county fire that happened a few years ago, you responded very quickly in regards to that and the issues that we had with a lot of the cattle ranchers that were affected by that. So I just want to commend you in your role.
Thank you.
The first question that I have is, can you tell the committee what the average age of the current farmer is in the state of Kansas?
I'm trying to recall, but USDA has a census that they do, and they actually have that data. It would be high 50s, I would say. Yeah, probably 57 or 8 would be pretty close.
Well, the chairman of the Agriculture Committee said it's his age. So it'd be in the late 50s.
That's young, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It's always been quite old, but to me, 58 doesn't sound that old anymore. But
well, I have to say, for me, that sounds old. But
sorry about that.
I remember those days.
But going on to that and extending on to those that are wanting to enter the agriculture industry as a younger age, it's very problematic. And there's a lot of factors that play into that. One is equipment prices are extremely high. Land prices are higher than what they used to be. And you also have, you know, you're talking about the grasslands. We also have where land is being purchased by out-of-state individuals who are predominantly taking those lands out of production and basically using it for hunting. So it's been a concern that I've heard from young farmers in my district. And then, you know, also with the age of the average farmer, they're entering into retirement age. And so I guess what can the Department of Agriculture do to assist young farmers entering into the #1 industry in the state of Kansas?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind is we encourage folks to contact there's a new program at Kansas State University to help the transition of the next generation. But it's quite difficult because there's huge economic factors that are weighing in. But as I see new entrants into agriculture, many of them, of course, are inheriting part of that operation, and so they've been able to move into that situation. But many folks who are retiring, as you mentioned, may not have any heirs or may not have any heirs who want to be involved in the production. And in some cases, they've been encouraged to reach out and find individuals who would like to get started. And it's pretty lean to get started, but actually it would be, in some cases, people have served as employees for that farming operation and have an agreement with the farmer that they would have access to their land, be able to rent that land, utilize the equipment without having to purchase it. It's kind of a transition to build the equity that it takes. There's been some state departments of ag that have implemented a program just specifically to help those situations, but we've encouraged folks to utilize the new program at Kansas State University that's attempting to do that. It's in about year 3 of the program.
All right, thank you. And obviously, where commodity prices are at right now, that's another factor that plays into those that are wanting to emerge into agriculture. Vice Chair Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 3 quick questions. First, on page 1, you say you included in your testimony that there are 235,000 jobs across the state, 15% of the workforce. Is that direct employment for those 74 food groups, or would that be also including secondary employment?
Mr. Secretary.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it'd be my understanding that those would be direct employees of those 74 sectors.
Vice Chair Williams.
Thank you. My next question relates to exports. On the front page, again, it says $63.6 billion in direct output in Kansas economy. If we flip over to the second page, we have a report that's not finished. We've got a few months to go on that report. But if you add up those exports, it looks like it's going to be south of $4 billion, maybe $3 billion plus. And I know we need to add 2 more months on it. So if we say $5 billion potentially, that's only 7% of our total output that you listed on the front page. So does that mean that the majority of Kansas production stays right in our state? Am I understanding that correctly?
So when we refer to exports, that would be international exports.
Right.
So a lot of it would go to other states. But I think as a whole, the last numbers I've seen as a whole, probably about over a third of U.S. agriculture production is exported internationally. It varies state to state based on where you're located geographically. But the more that another state would export corn internationally, that would help our domestic corn market as we try to fill in for that. Because being in the middle of the United States has many advantages. It's not a real strong advantage to export internationally because we have a long way to get to the ports, to the other aspects for exporting. In fact, we're working on that, trying to figure out a way that we can have our producers have more access to rail and other sources to get to the ports, such as the Port of Catoosa and Tulsa, so they can have better access to international markets.
Vice Chair Williams.
Just a couple more things. I mean, this leads to the next point. When we travel anywhere, even in the United States, we often think our beef is best here. And I remember going to New York and having the worst steak. However, my question is, I've heard the rumor that the majority of our beef is exported out of Kansas. Is that true?
Not a majority, but there's a significant amount of it. There's a lot of meat and what we call offal or byproducts from animals that go to Mexico. They're a huge market for us. If you think about hearts and other organs, we don't eat a lot of those in the United States, but it's a big demand in Mexico, so it helps us. But there's a lot of high quality, high-end beef that does go to Asia. They're a big market for our high-end meat, and of course our U.S. consumers prefer it as well. So there's pretty good demand domestically for the high-end products.
Okay, my last question is, at one time, we were often considered the breadbasket of the world, but we also know that in the United States, the huge spike in gluten allergies has just soared, and there seems to be, according to RFK, some type of correlation to the way that we spray or treat our crops prior to harvest, a few weeks prior. So I'm sure the jury's still out on that, but my question is, because of that, are we, with right now, we're a seventh in the nation in total value of ag production. Are we not exporting as much wheat as we once were because our wheat is not as desirable internationally? That's my question. Because I have been told by large distributing companies that are overseas that they don't take our wheat. And then when we travel internationally, we know that it's a different product than what we have here. So basically the question is, overall, are we exporting less wheat, or if we are, is it to China or some other nation that may not care? And B, what ranking do we have, and any comment on the gluten? Thank you.
Secretary Beam.
So we are exporting less wheat, but I would say the reasons are there's been significant increase in production in other countries. So now, we used to be the primary producer of hard red winter wheat in the United States. Now other countries such as Ukraine, Russia, and these others have become big players in the wheat market. And you also got to remember there's soft wheat, hard red winter wheat. There's different types of wheat depending on if it's for pasta or for baking. I would say that those countries that have increased their ability to increase exports in wheat and take some of our market may not have as strong as standards as we have in the United States as far as how we've treated our product. And so gluten would be an issue with wheat no matter where it's grown. But I would say that there's starting to become more opportunities for products such as sorghum, who doesn't have the gluten project, and that's what we're trying to work on, is try to increase that production for domestic and export as well.
Vice Chair Williams.
Okay, I would challenge you to look into that on your statement that gluten is the same everywhere, because I think there's a considerable amount of information, data, studies that suggest that our crop is treated differently, and I'm not even sure if we could export to the EU. I would have to dig into that. So I would just encourage you to really look at that, look at some of the outputs and discussions from RFK on this topic. And finally, do you know where we rank in terms of other states, in terms of, we used to be number 1 or 2 in wheat export. Do you know where we are today?
I don't know if I can tell you on exports, but we're still the largest producer of hard red winter wheat in Kansas, of the United States.
Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you for your service. I think one thing that your tenure as Secretary will show that you've always been fair. You didn't bring politics into Kansas Department of Agriculture, so we appreciate that. You've done a good job as far as being a good regulator, and your team has been with you for a long time, so we thank you for that. Boy, there's a lot there. Kansas is the #1 wheat producing state from hard red winter wheat. Kansas farmers are also, some are growing, even in my district, are growing spring wheat. There's 6 different classes of wheat in Kansas, grown in the country, not necessarily in Kansas. What has happened over time, and again, this is not to speculate, but the federal government has basically told people to grow corn. Many counties that were wheat counties are now corn counties. And we have the largest, 2 of the largest wheat gluten plant in Kansas, in the North America. One's in Russell and one's in Phillipsburg. The Phillipsburg one was a corn ethanol plant, and it converted into wheat. And so we can argue about gluten, this and that and the other, and RFK and MAGA and HAGA and LAGA, and come up with everything under the sun. But the thing is that the U.S. and Kansas farmers are some of the most efficient, conscientious, hardworking, do things by the book. Yesterday, right here in this room, in agriculture, we had a bill dealing with labeling of products that are used to grow food and to show what agriculture does. Those farmers read the label. And what we did in this committee, and colleagues, you will have the opportunity in the next coming days to hopefully show your support to agriculture here in Kansas, that basically says you need to follow the label direction on application. And if you do that, things will be fine. If you choose to ignore that, you should not have the ability to sue because of negligence. Kansas is still thick when it comes to wheat around the world. Everybody around the world grows wheat. Wheat is driven by price. But you will find folks like U.S. Wheat Associates and their director of policy lives right here in Kansas. As they travel the world, when it comes to quality, Kansas wheat is still the most quality wheat in the world. You'll find it. It's in fact. Sorghum. Kansas is the #1 sorghum producing state in the country. China, a few years ago, was the #1 market where all our sorghum went. They're trying to build that back up. Mexico is a strong importer of Kansas sorghum. China loves Kansas sorghum because of their liquor of choice called Baijiu. And they appreciate what's grown, especially in western Kansas, in that sorghum belt. So there are many, many good things about agriculture. Agriculture is one of those building blocks of this economy. We talk a lot about business and aviation, Mr. Chairman. I don't mean to go too long, but I will defend agriculture to the hilt and those hardworking farmers in every 105 counties in this state. And they're doing things the right way. And many, many worldwide agribusinesses are located and choose to be located right here in Kansas. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Representative Mosier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Secretary Beam, for your service
Thank you.
all of these years and your wonderful staff. I've been to the KDA office several times, and I appreciate the professionalism, the efficiency, the concern that they have for Kansas agriculture. And on that note, at the top of the second full page, I would encourage all of my colleagues at one point in time to take part in the department's emergency preparedness program for foreign animal diseases. This is real, and it's not if it happens. In today's world, it's probably going to be when it happens. And Kansas is a leader in the nation as far as preparedness for stopping livestock movement, making sure producers have filled out the correct paperwork and qualified to move their cattle or sheep or hogs or horses or whatever. And then, like Secretary Beam said, you know, getting the highway patrol involved, because there's going to be quarantine areas that are going to have to be monitored 24/7. And we all eat and we all drink water. And so just the exposure to the preparations that they have made, I think would warrant everyone to go to at least one day. It's a 3-day exercise because it starts and then, you know, they go through the motions and how it spreads and how it comes in and, you know, the different diseases, and foot and mouth would kill the beef industry in Kansas if it got here and out of hand. But we have a department that is very cognizant of these challenges, and they have done this, was the 12th year, I believe. And so I would just encourage you all to take in a day of that at some point. It's usually mid-December of every year, and It's very worth your time, and I appreciate all that the department has done over the years. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, thanks for your support and your interest and for coming to those events and for encouraging others to do so as well. I kind of glossed over this, Mr. Chairman, but I talked about economic impacts to the state. We have county by county data. So if you're interested in the major agricultural sectors impacts in your district, or at least on a county by county basis, it's on our website, but if you would like help in finding that, just let us know and we'll help you.
Representative Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So to build on what Representative Mosier was talking about, I was real interested in that discussion about the animal disease response, and I hope to maybe visit one of the exercises. I'm also kind of concerned about just, are you all also preparing and looking towards the future in potential transmission from animal to humans? I'm just concerned about making sure that we're ahead of that, and if that is something that you all are also discussing and being prepared for. Thank you.
Secretary.
Yes, to some extent. We try to be very cognizant of the current diseases that we've been dealt with, like the highly pathogenic avian influenza. It can, on rare occasion, spread to humans. So that's why we have a good relationship with KDHE. They know about every one of these outbreaks, and they encourage local health officials to follow up to make sure there's no symptoms from the family or others. So we'll be, anytime there's a potential crossover, have been and will be in communication with KDHE. But we don't know if we'll have to do that because there could be new situations in the future that we can't even imagine at this point.
Representative Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you here this morning.
Thank you.
I do have one about the animal disease response also in the avian flu or whatever we want to call it. Number one, did that have a lot to do with the cost of the eggs?
It did, yes.
What has the U.S. Agriculture done? You say we're responding to significant outbreak, but what have they done to minimize that? Because, you know, in Lawrence, Kansas, people never know it, but there's a lot of people growing chickens in their backyard. And they're very fond of their chickens and everything else. So you say they have to stay away from like the migratory waterfowl and all of that. But how can they avoid doing that when they're flying overhead all the time?
Well, it's hard to, it's difficult to control that. But if they are located close to maybe a water source where that waterfowl will hang out, we would encourage them to keep them shut up for a while until those migratory birds move on. In some cases, some of the larger facilities, and it doesn't have to be waterfowl, it could be starlings or other birds that sometimes try to get into buildings. So that's why USDA helped with biosecurity audits of these operations where they could go in and do an assessment of where they're vulnerable for not necessarily waterfowl, but wild birds that could carry that disease. When about a year ago now, I know USDA took several steps to address egg prices because we had to depopulate many laying hens across the United States, so we didn't have near as many eggs being produced there for a while. They took several steps. They helped with those biosecurity audits. They actually, on a limited basis, worked on bringing more imports of eggs in from other areas to try to get the supply up. And of course, you know, that high peak spike in egg prices, fortunately, has dropped off considerably. I can't remember what I paid for the last dozen, but I always tell consumers just divide that by 12, and that's how much it costs per serving. It's not near as high that way.
Representative Ballard.
And thank you, Mr. Secretary. It really is a pleasure to hear you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I was reading sounds like, though, that this is less or less cases than we've had in the past, even though
Yeah.
there's a lot of big media about it.
I can't recall the exact number, but it's definitely less, or about equal to or less than I think we had 2 years ago. But it seems like a lot when you're going through it. And
sure.
But we needed this cold weather to drive those wild birds on south. Whenever that happens, that tends to lessen our caseload.
So I did notice that there's 3 counties that are still under quarantine. So how long is that fairly normal?
Yes, I can't remember the length of time. It is, there's a control zone and a quarantine. The actual farm is under quarantine. And so there's like a couple week time frame that we'll go in and make sure that, they've done some disinfectant and cleaned it up before we lift the quarantine and they can repopulate. Okay. But if you're in the control zone, then there's special considerations for moving, selling or moving poultry to make sure that they're not ill before they move them.
But this is not, I guess my point is, it's not something this is kind of normal that you have.
It seems like it's been fairly normal since 2022.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Representative Helgerson.
Mr. Secretary, first, I just want to say thank you very much for all your service. It's been
Thank
a
you.
joy to work with you over the years. You made a point to address the voluntary trees that are occurring throughout our grassland. Those are the cedars?
A lot of them are eastern red cedars, yes.
It seems like we had a program or proposal a few years ago to eradicate those. Do you remember that, or was that something that was talked about but not followed through?
Yeah, there might have been some discussion about it, but we haven't. They're not really declared officially invasive, which some people would like to see us do that. But and some are planted for windbreaks, but some states have taken maybe stronger action against the planting of those trees. But once you get established, the trees established, the seed output tends to really kind of get out of control. It may be half a mile away. The birds seem to spread the seed, so it could really jump out ahead of you.
Okay. Second point, you mentioned in the report a little bit of what tariffs have done. Do you quantify that at all? How much have tariffs hurt sorghum, soybeans, anything else that you'd like to talk about?
Well, a lot of people have tried to quantify what that impact's been, and I don't know if I've actually seen an estimate, but it's clear that the market has reacted to not being able to export. Those graphs that I've included, that's not the only reason that market fell. There's other factors, but the uncertainty in the marketplace, the loss of some international markets, at least on a temporary basis, have definitely contributed to the downturn that we've seen.
You mean like 10%, 20%? If we're
I'm sure it'd exceed 10%, but I just haven't seen a strong analysis to give you a dollar or a percentage. I will look for that. Actually, the Commodity Classic is tomorrow and Friday, and I know they've got some economists there, and there'll be a lot of grain growers there. So I'm going to guess they'll have some data that I'm looking forward to getting. If I find that, I'll get that to you.
Thank you. Final question. You're retiring, right? Are you?
My term ends.
Your term ends. Well, we understand.
Yeah.
Well, you and I go back. We've had a lot of those together.
What's retirement?
I guess my question is, you've had more longevity than most people in this position. You want to make any recommendations what we need to do for agriculture in the state?
Secretary Beam.
Yeah, my primary recommendation is to, number one, address this water. Encourage, particularly as you get into the High Plains Aquifer, encourage and support programs or projects, potentially policies that the task force may come up with, to extend the life of that aquifer for future generations. That should be number one. Number two, I think, is how do we continue to support increasing value-added opportunities for our products? And that includes, to some extent, transportation opportunities, more access to rail but if we can increase the value-added opportunities, Representative Rod just talked about some recent ones in his area. It's a lot easier to sell and export, final products than it is the raw commodities. Those would be my two recommendations.
Thank you very much.
Representative Getz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Secretary, for being here today. I also wanted to thank you for noting on page 11 that Ford County, Dodge City, my district, was the #1 county in ag production. So I just wanted to get a little bragging rights in there and celebrate our great people with Cargill and National and all the great farmers and now Hillmar as well.
Yes.
So thank you for all our partners there in Dodge and for you noting that for my bragging right purposes. You got to mention the first one that you led with was the water. And I wondered if you would also kind of what your interaction with the water office looks like, because I know it's and just kind of explain to us kind of how you guys work together interagency. And then also just your advice on balancing the tension of the water rights of farmers with the need to reduce, the need to come up with new solutions and be adaptive. So if you just speak to that, please.
Secretary Beam.
Sure. So the Division of Water Resources is actually within the Department of Agriculture, and that's the agency that administers the 50,000 plus water rights. So anything dealing with water quantity, not just agriculture, but municipalities and industry, they need to get a permit from our Division of Water Resources. And of course, it's their responsibility to make sure that permit doesn't cause an impairment to other water rights. That's their primary responsibility. But we kind of have several layers when we're addressing water, particularly irrigation. So you have the groundwater management districts, which play a major role in doing local planning. So we've had ongoing conversations and tried to provide lots of support to those groundwater management districts who are looking at the data to see what level of pumping do we need to get to make this more sustainable. And it's easy to come up with the numbers. And I would say this, that probably Kansas has the best data through the Geological Survey and years of measuring wells. Each year we go out and measure 1,000 wells, the same 1,000 wells, track the usage, the change in the water level. But, we'll have certain limitations on a regulatory standpoint, as long as people are pumping within their authorized quantity and not impairing someone. Technically, that's about all we can do from a regulatory standpoint. But we can continue to provide options for locals, particularly groundwater management districts, who want to set a path of we're going to use X amount of water because the data shows that if we get to this lower level of use, then we'll kind of stabilize our aquifer. So, and the groundwater management district, of course, is going to respond to the local irrigators and the users of water. So we just had hearings on a plan in Southwest Kansas, and we'll continue to have hearings on. They're seeking public input amongst their peers about different options that they have. So I think having that dialogue and encouraging the commitment that they locally, collectively can get to a level that's more sustainable, I think will happen. But it wouldn't happen without the data and without the encouragement, I think, of many people.
Representative Getz.
Well, thank you for your response and thank you for your service. And you're always welcome to stick around a little longer if you really want to. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Secretary Beam, for being here and giving us an update on the largest industry in the state of Kansas. throughout the entire history of the state of Kansas, agriculture has always been the largest industry. So thank you, and thank you again for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, committee, we're going to go ahead and move on to our budget report outs. And so I'll now turn it over to Chairperson Wassinger from the General Government Budget Committee. And she's going to first start off with the one that we had to pass over yesterday, which was the Kansas Lottery. Chairperson Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if I have this close enough. The Kansas Lottery was amended into the Kansas Constitution in 1986, and the next year, the Kansas Lottery was established to provide for the operation of state-owned lottery systems and responsibly distribute gaming revenues in accordance with state law. It authorizes the Kansas Lottery to own and operate electronic gaming machines within the following casinos: Boot Hill, Hollywood, Kansas Crossing, and Kansas Star. They're all owned by the state and regulated, and they're managed by third parties, which are lottery facility managers who receive more than half of the expanded game revenue. Similarly, lottery facility managers retain 90% of the sports wagering revenue because of the same entities offering sports wagering on behalf of the state of Kansas through the Kansas Lottery. For 2026, the agency requests a revised estimate of $541.4 million, all from special revenue funds, and 91 FTEs in 2026. This is an increase of $45 million, or 9.1% above the previous approved by the 2005 legislature. Casino gaming increased by $17.9 million for a total of $425.4 million in revenue from the state-owned casinos. As such, the amount of revenue retained by the lottery gaming facility managers is expected to increase by 13.1. And likewise, the amount of money transferred to cities and counties is expected to increase to $537,000, all from the expanded lottery receipts fund. Sports wagering increased by $35 million for a total of $155 million in revenue for sports wagering in 2026. The amount of revenue retained by the lottery gaming facility managers is expected to increase by $31.5 million. The Special Committee on State Budget concurred with the agency's revised estimate with the following adjustment: adopt the fall 2025 consensus revenue estimate for expanded casino gaming and sports wagering for FY 2026. The House Committee on General Government Budget concurred with the Special Committee's recommendation with the following adjustment: delete 5 FTEs that have been vacant for over 1 year in FY 2026. The Senate Committee on Federal and State Affairs concurs with the Special Committee's recommendation in FY 2026. I'll stand for questions, or I can move on.
All right. Actually, I have a question in regards to the revenues. And I know this opened, I believe, in December in Park City. Is there any expectation on what the new facility is going to be generating in revenue?
Oh, do you have any idea?
Yeah, it's not built into the estimates yet.
It's not built into the estimates yet, since it's not.
But it's not built into the estimates. Okay. But any expectation, or is there any discussion on what the revenues might be from that new facility?
Well,
We're going to have a presentation next week, too,
Okay.
on that. So
Okay.
maybe that's a question that
fine. Okay.
I'll ask them. Okay, thank you.
Whatever you want.
All right, thank you, Chairperson Wassinger. Any questions in regards to 2026? Representative Mosier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chair Wassinger. Can you tell me, what does the state of Kansas get in all this?
Chairperson Wassinger.
$94.5 million. Was it transferred to ELAR in FY 2026 and $94.3 million in FY 2027?
Okay, we get about $94.5 million that goes from the expanded lottery fund in 2026 and a little over 93 million in 2027.
Representative Mosier.
Thank
That's an
you,
estimate.
thank you.
Any other further questions in regards to 2026? Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm seeing more, I guess, maybe paying attention, but seeing more of those at some of the big box retailers and other places, which I find kind of interesting, where the you can buy all the different lottery tickets. Did you talk about, are those meeting their expectations from what they thought when they put them there, and have another follow-up after that?
From everything
Chairperson Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. From everything I've seen, everything has expanded way beyond what they expected.
Mr. Rogers.
All right, would you explain, because usually I get fuel outside and don't go in, but I see these games now, like it serves in Hayes.
Right?
You got people sitting there on these benches playing something. Is that a lottery game? Is that a game of chance? I mean, I'm not sure, but they're all over the place. Have you not seen these?
No, I've personally seen them
I'm
as
sorry,
well.
I don't gamble. I didn't vote for it in 1986 because to me it's a volunteer tax. So I don't understand what those are, and but I thought, well, if it's part of the lottery, when did that pass and what does it
Well,
mean?
and I kind of have the same question because there's a truck stop that's just north of south of our farm shop. And I was actually walking in there the day they were installing 4 gaming machines. I would call them gaming machines. And then I walked in a couple hours later, and people that were passing through the truck stop, they were full. And I was wondering what changed to allow those, and it's probably not by chance, I'm guessing.
They are not allowed. They are called gray machines. The state doesn't get any money from that. The Kansas Racing and Gaming Commission is doing some litigation and investigating all those to get rid of them and do something different.
Okay, so next week we have the Kansas Racing and Gaming Commission, so that might be a question that we pose to them. Because I had the same question myself when I saw those
Yeah,
installed.
and there's a difference between chance games and skill games, so that's part of the litigation as well. It's hard to figure out. I don't gamble either, so when I read all this, I'm like, okay, whatever it is.
Okay. So that'd be part of the Racing and Gaming Commission rather than the lottery.
I think they're pursuing the litigation.
They're trying to get the money. They're trying to stop them from, because they're getting money in those machines, but they're not giving it to the state.
And they're probably not regulated.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So
Well,
next time you go to one of those truck stops, don't use one of those.
I don't. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions in regards to 2026? All right, seeing none, Chairperson Wassinger, 2027.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The agency requests $543 million, all from special revenue funds and expenditures, and 91 FTEs for 2027. This is an increase of $46.6 million, or 9.4%. The increase is almost entirely due to the fall consensus revenue estimating group, increasing the revenue estimate for both expanded gaming, sports wagering, and all the rest. However, the agency is expecting an increase in contractual services expenditures for both marketing of almost $1 million and the cost of sales of $605,000 due to the volume of partnerships and sponsorships which the agency participates in. They have the same transfers to cities and counties, and it will increase the expanded lottery receipts fund by $12.5 million in FY27. The Special Committee on the State Budget concurs with the agency request. With the following adjustment to adopt the fall 2025 consensus revenue estimate for expanded casino gaming and sports wagering for 27. The House Committee on General Government Budget concurs with the Special Committee's recommendation for FY27 with the following adjustments: to delete the 5 positions that have been vacant for over 1 year in 2027. The Senate Committee on Fed and State concurs with the special committee's recommendation of FY27 with the following adjustments. Add language providing the Kansas Lottery shall not expend monies or negotiate to enter into any contract or extension of an existing contract or renewal of an existing contract for the management of sports wagering with any lottery gaming facility manager for 2027. This would be a continuation of the proviso language in 2025's SB 125 that was effective in 25 and is still in effect in 2026. The current sports wagering contracts between the Kansas Lottery and the lottery gaming facility managers expire in August of 27. They also added language to increase the statutory lottery vending machine transfer to Community Crisis Stabilization Centers Fund and the Clubhouse Model Program Fund of the Kansas Department of Aging and Disability Services from $8 million to $16 million in FY27. Also, again, SB 125 increased the statutory LVM transfer from $8 million to $10 million. Number 3, they wanted to add language to suspend the transfer from the State Gaming Revenues Fund to the Economic Development Initiatives Fund, EDIF, for FY28. That would include transferring any remaining EDIF funds to the State General Fund and routing any future EDIF transfer to the State General Fund. And with that, I'll stand for questions. That's a mouthful.
Thank you, Chairperson Walsinger. Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So does the Senate getting rid of the EDIF fund?
Chairperson Walsinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think they are trying to redirect things, have more control over that. I don't think they're getting rid of the EDIF funds.
Okay, so how much is the, I can't remember, how much is the transfer?
42 million.
22 million?
42 million.
Oh, 42 million, okay.
2 million? To EDIF, sorry.
Yeah, 42
Anyone can't
million to
hear.
EDIF. Okay. And then my last question, Mr. Chairman, if I may, how much is going to State General Fund from sports wagering?
Chairperson Walsinger.
We're going to have to look that up, but right now, the contract gives us a very small percentage. The majority of the money goes to the casino gaming managers, facility managers. Correct, ma'am.
Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I'm sorry. Thinking about having a slice of bread, I guess, from this morning. It's that time of the year. Hollywood Casino. Are we going to have a hotel there? Is that ever going to happen again?
Actually, there was an announcement that they are building a hotel at Hollywood.
Well, I thought I heard that, but I wasn't sure. And
Yeah, they made an announcement that they were going
okay,
to be building
so
a hotel.
then that will stop.
Thankfully, after 10 years,
Right.
they're finally building a hotel.
Mr. Chairman, okay, so as we talked about, the sports wagering situation comes up for renewal at the end of fiscal year 27. Who negotiates that? Is that the lottery? Is that the LCC? Because I know we've talked about in the past of trying to get a large percentage. Who is the negotiator for that? And does it get approved by Appropriations, or is that approved by an agency and then that's just the way it is?
If it's just approved by, or it's negotiated by the lottery.
I think it is.
The lottery is the final.
Or the casinos. There's a lot of people involved in this. A lot of fingers involved in this.
Right. I'm just trying to figure who the final who's defending the state's position is what I'm curious about.
Chairperson Walsinger.
I'm not sure I know. Poor Dylan.
It's a negotiation by the Kansas Lottery with the sports wagering entities, except for the language prohibits those negotiations pending additional state action.
Okay, it's really decided by the Kansas Lottery and the gaming facilities, except for now, what the Senate added was for them to hold off so they can look at that revenue and figure out where it's all going.
Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And it's already suspended in current legislation.
Representative Helgerson.
That was for the internet lottery, is that right?
Chairperson Walsinger.
The suspension?
Yes.
Oh,
It's the
I'm sorry,
sports wagering.
sports wagering? All of it is.
You know what would be real helpful for me and I assume that not the agency, but research has it, to give me a chart that says, this is how much we're making this year for the following different components: the gambling, the casinos, how much they made last year, how much this year. This is actually the performance measure, whether or not they bring more money into the state. So we get a chart that says, this is what the revenues is, this is what's having in, and then at the bottom, they tell us when the contracts are going to be renewed, because I think Chairman and I had discussions over the years about the casinos that we have and whether or not their license was renewed or not renewed. And it seems like in a bill that's passed in the last couple of years, we gave that authority or renewed it or something. But who's in charge of it to make that final determination? Whether or not it's the executive at the lottery or the governor's office, or it has to have legislative approval.
Chairperson Walsinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. They're going to work on it, and they're going to get it to all of us,
Great,
I would
thank you.
imagine. So,
Vice Chair Williams.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, we probably won't have the answers to this, but I would love research to maybe provide back some information about this. It is about the gaming, and we do get 10%, but actually after you do all the deductions and so forth, I don't think we get 10%. So I think we should get a breakdown. And the reason I say that is if you look it up, we've got about $2.4 billion worth of total sales for 2025. And the handle, or the piece that they maintain or retain, is around 10%, or maybe just under that. So if that's the truth, then we should be getting about $20 million. That's 10%. Instead, we're getting less than that. So I think that there's probably a series of deductions that they're taking off, even though our statutes say 10%. So I want to know, how is this acceptable when we negotiated 10%? And the second thing I would just bring up to the entire committee, and the reason there was a proviso added last year, and I think I added it, but not 100% sure, about taking a look at that contract again, is because if you look at Oregon retains 51%. They have about half as much gambling or less than we do. I guess we're a bigger state, but we do a lot more sports betting. I looked it up, and in 2025, I think they maintained about $100 million, something like that. And then we get less than 10%. And I know Missouri did 10% too, but I don't think that's probably, a reason to continue doing it. And that's why that proviso was in there last year. I'm not saying it's a possible option for us to put it back on. I'm not adding it right now, but I would just encourage this committee to investigate for yourself. And then also, if research could get a breakdown, are we really getting, let's look at the sales. Let's look at the amount that they may retain. Let's look at the breakdown. Are we getting 10% or less than that? And if we could have that before the final putting together the bill, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Any further questions for Chairperson Walsinger? Representative Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question. It seems like it should be simple, but it isn't. Would you explain who are the facility managers? Because everything refers to this, like the money retained by the lottery gaming facility managers hinges on the total amount of revenue generated. So is it of each facility, but who are they?
Chairperson
they are
Walsinger.
the operators of the casinos.
Just the managers of each, so do they collectively report this, and that's where we get it from, or are they looking at individuals?
Chairperson Walsinger.
I don't either. They provide revenue estimates to the lottery, but I'm not sure how to answer that question. But I will tell Representative Williams that Molly will make sure she gets that information. But also, the primary cut from our money is also marketing. That's when they give away tickets, when they have special games, that they have, free tickets, things like that. So we pay for that as well, out of our portion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And going on to the first part of that question, I believe we do receive individual financial reports from each casino on what their revenues are, so.
Yes,
And what they
from each
provide to
one.
the state. So we do have it by each of the state-owned casinos, the 4 that are currently in existence in the state. Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is maybe a question for staff, but I'm looking at what the Senate did, and on number 3, I thought the EDIF fund was established in a constitutional amendment in this constitutional. I don't think you can just take the money and close the fund.
Dylan, is that, you may want to answer that question, or Jill, do you have an answer to that? Jill said that she'll get back to us on that. Any further questions in regards to 2027? All right, seeing none, Chairperson Walsinger, I'd entertain a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we approve the budgets for the Kansas Lottery of 2026 and 2027 as amended by the committees.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Rajas. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Chairperson Walsinger, the Kansas Real Estate Appraisal Board.
Okay, this one's a little less difficult to understand. All right, the Kansas Real Estate Board is a state agency responsible for protecting Kansans through the regulation of real estate appraisers and appraisal management companies. It was established in 1990. They oversee licensure, registration, examinations, approves and monitors education programs, investigates complaints, imposes discipline as necessary for federal and state appraisal standards. The board consists of 7 governor appointees serving staggered 3-year terms, including the representatives of public financial institutions and licensed real estate agents. For FY 2026, the agency submits a revised estimate of $440,000, all from the appraiser fee fund, and 3 FTE positions in 26. This is a decrease of $18,240 or 4% below the amount approved by the 2025 legislature. The Special Committee on the State Budget concurred with the agency's revised estimate in 26, and the House Committee on General Budget, Government Budget, concurred with the Special Committee's recommendations in 2026. With that, I'll stand for questions, or I can just move right on.
I'm not seeing any questions for 2026, so please just move on to 2027.
All right, the agency requests $400,503, all from the appraiser fee fund, and 3 FTEs for 2027. As this is a biennial agency, its budget for this fiscal year was also approved by the 25 legislature. The revised estimate is equivalent to the amount approved by the 25 legislature. They did not submit any enhancement requests for FY 27. The Special Committee on State Budget concurs with the agency, and the Committee on General Government Budget concurred with the Special Committee's recommendation for FY 2027. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, Chairperson Walsinger, I'd entertain a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we approve the Real Estate Appraisal Board's budgets for the years 26 and 27 as presented.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion, seconded by Representative Mosier. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. So Chairperson Walsinger.
All right, now I'm going to move on to the Kansas Real Estate Commission. They regulate the sale, purchase, and leasing of real estate to protect Kansas consumers. They operate under the authority of KSA 74-4001 with licensing standards established by the Real Estate Brokers and Salespersons License Act. Their board consists of 5 governor appointees staggered in 4-year terms with 1 member from each congressional district and 1 at-large member. And at least 1 member must represent the public with no prior brokerage experience. For FY '27, the agency submits a revised estimate of $1.5 million, all from other funds, and 12 FTE positions for '26. This is an increase of $4,749, or 0.3% above the amount approved by the '25 legislature. The increase reflects funding for attorney and legal fees and software to develop online compliance courses. The special committee on the state budget concurred with the agency's revised estimate in 2026, and so did the House Government Budget Committee. And I'll stand for questions, or I'll just keep going. I don't think there are questions.
All right. Any questions? Seeing none, move on to 2027.
Okay, for 2027, the Kansas Real Estate Commission requests $1.5 million from the cosmetology fee fund. That sounds like there's an error in this. It's from the that is an error. That is an error. Okay, from all their other funds, and 12 FTE positions for 2027. This is an increase of $42,939, or 2.88% above the amount approved due to the biennial agencies for 2027, and additional funding for attorney, legal fees, and software to develop online compliance courses. The Special Committee on State Budget concurred with the agency for 2027, and the House Committee on General Government Budget also concurred with the Special Budget Committee's recommendation for FY 2027. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll stand for questions.
Committee, any questions? All right, seeing none, Chairperson Walsinger may make a motion.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I move that we approve the budget for Kansas Real Estate Commission for the years 26 and 27 as presented.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Getz. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Chairperson Walsinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Board of Examiners in Optometry was created in 1909 to administer and enforce the Optometry Act to ensure high-quality eye care for the citizens of Kansas. There are approximately 750 optometrists licensed in Kansas. The agency requested a revised estimate of $279,681 and 2 FTE positions in FY '26. This is equivalent to the amount approved by the '25 legislature, and there are no other supplemental requests. The Special Committee on State Budget concurred with the agency's estimate in '26, as well as the House Committee on General Government Budget concurred with the special committees. The Senate Committee on Ways and Means concurred with the Special Committee's recommendation for 2026. With that, I can move on to 2027.
Seeing no questions, you may move on to 2027.
For FY 2027, for the Board of Examiners, the agency requests a revised estimate of $259,184, all from special revenue funds, and 1 FTE position for FY '27. The revised estimate is equivalent to the amount approved by the '25 legislature. The agency has not submitted any enhancement requests for '27. The Special Committee on State Budget concurred with the agency's request. The House Committee on General Government concurred with the Special Committee's recommendation for '27, as well as the Senate Committee on Ways and Means concurring with the Special Budget Committee recommendation for FY '20. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Committee, any questions? All right, seeing none, Chairperson Walsinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we approve the Board of Examiners in Optometry for the years of 2026 and 2027 as presented.
All right, committee, for the motion, seconded by Representative Getz. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, thank you, Chairperson Walsinger. I believe you are done for the day. So we'll turn over to Chairman Bueller with the Social Services Budget Committee, and he has the Kansas Guardianship Program. Chairman Bueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Kansas Guardianship Program is a quasi-governmental agency by statute that ensures eligible adults without family financial resources have access to court-appointed guardians, typically through Adult Protective Services, DCF, and KDADs. One of the things that we heard about in committee last year, which is, and I won't dwell on it, we passed House Bill 2359 last year when we went through the budget process there were a bunch of administrative requirements in House Bill 2359. It's not a prop, but it's 90 pages long. There's all sorts of new elements for the guardianship program that are associated with that bill. And so summarily, they were talking about expenses going up for computer services, salaries, professional fees, and adherence to House Bill 2359. So with that being said, for FY 2026, the agency is requesting a revised estimate of $1.5 million, all from SGF, to fund their 10 FTEs. It's an increase of about $43,000 or 3%, and it is for the expenses I previously mentioned. The Special Committee on the State Budget concurred with the agency's request for FY 26, as did the House Committee on Social Services Budget. And with that, I would stand for questions or move on to 2027.
Committee, any questions? Seeing none, please move on to 2027.
Okay, pretty much the same story. Again, the 10 FTEs, the agency is requesting a revised estimate of $1.5 million, all from SGF. Again, the agency noted the increase was due to travel expenses, the computer services, professional fees. There's a slight decrease in guardianship stipends. With that being said, the Special Committee on State Budget concurred with the agency's request for FY 2027, as did the House Committee on Social Services Budget. And with that, I would stand for questions.
Committee, any questions for Chairman Buehler? All right, seeing none, Chairman Buehler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the Social Services Budget Committee recommendations for the Kansas Guardianship Program for fiscal years 2026 and 2027.
All right, committee, you heard the motion by Chairman Buehler, seconded by Representative Ballard. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, thank you, Chairman Buehler. And then we'll move on to the final budget report out that we have today by Chairman Getz with the K-12 Education Budget Committee for the Kansas State School for the Deaf. Chairman Getz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kansas State School for the Deaf is an accredited K-12 school campus located in Olathe, Kansas. Independent state agency under the control and supervision of the State Board of Education. Mission to help deaf and hard of hearing students achieve their full potential, 21 years of age and under. Starting with the agency requests, revised estimate 18.4 million, 12.9 million SGF, 140.7 FTE positions in fiscal year 2026, an FGF 1.5% lapse restoration, this 95,000 for the language assessment program, and additional school days and pay increase. And I will note it several times, but this 228,000 for that actually changed in 26 to around 430,000. It was an early estimate. When it actually got back to us, it was 430,000 for 26. So then the Special Committee on State Budget deleted the 228 in the days, deleted the 94,000 SGF language assessment program, and deleted the 1,168 SGF in reappropriations. House Committee on State Budget added 375,000 SGF to cover additional pay for certified teachers. This includes teachers, outreach, curriculum organizers, social workers. That was for fiscal year 2026, and add language allowing the agency to spend up to 375,000 to cover additional funding to match the amount of the final negotiated contract, but not to exceed the amount negotiated for certified teachers. They at the beginning of session, they had just finished their teacher negotiations for that, and so they were halfway through the school year. And that was why this add was necessary, because there was a very different time frame for their educators' contracts. Number two was to add back the 94,880 for SGF to restore the language assessment program. It's a huge outreach program for them, and funded several critical staff. And then add language, this was similar to the School for the Blind, add language allowing the agency to purchase under the statutes for procurement for school districts rather than those of state agencies in fiscal year 2026. We know they won't have much time to utilize this in 26, but it starts the permission now so they can start planning for 27, and also add language to grant State Board of Education authority to authorize those purchases to require competitive bids in certain situations, and that the state board may authorize the school superintendent the authority to make purchases without state board approval under certain circumstances for fiscal year 2026. With that, I'll stand for questions for 26.
Committee, any questions for Chairman Getz on 2026? I see none. Let me move on to 2027.
Moving on to 27, agency requests $21.2 million, including $13.8 million SGF and 140.7 FTE positions for fiscal year 2027. This is largely due to the following enhancement requests. The powerhouse structure was a 1.8. This is housing their boilers for, I think, 3 other buildings at least, and 1.8 for SIBF to demolish it and make it an entrance point and more parking for the campus. Number 2 is the Emory Elementary dorm remodel, $1.2 million. Additional school days pay increase, $228 million, and this year it moved to about 292 by the time it got to committee. The ASL proficiency incentives contract, $143,000. Capital improvements R&R base increase, $129,000. SGF 1.5 lapse restoration of $94,880, same as the year before. Special committee concurs with the agency request 2027 with the following adjustments. Special committee deleted 1 through 7, and then deleted the $70,000 match for pay parity with USD 233 Olathe. House Committee on K-12 Education Budget concurs with Special Committee with the following adjustments. Add $600,000 SIBF for the elementary dorm and roof replacement. I toured this dorm. They were not able to use it because of the leakage of the roof. They have fixed it and patched it several times. We think this needs to be taken care of. Add $391,400 SGF to cover additional pay for certified teachers in their negotiated contract, but not to exceed the $391,400. Add the $102,000 SGF to support the ALS proficiency pay stipends and supplemental pay for staff and summer curriculum planning workshop. This also includes a 3-week summer school where they were only able to pay teachers $150 a day. This moved it up to $200 a day. Add back the $129,000 SIBF, account for inflation within capital improvements. Add the $94,000, which would restore the language assessment program, and then add the language allowing the agency to purchase under the statutes of procurement for school districts rather than the state agencies. And then I will jump down to and then add the language requiring the report similar to the School for the Blind to be presented to the legislature to give us some feedback on what the cost savings were, what efficiencies were actualized through this enactment. And then number 1 on the notes states financial support for the Kansas State School for the Deaf shall be recognized as a state appropriation for the provision of special education and related services, and appropriate credit shall be given to such legislative appropriations when deliberating and acting on special education and related services funding for fiscal year 2027. Stand for questions. A lot of words.
Committee, any questions for Chairman Getz in regards to 2027? All right, seeing none, Chairman Getz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that Committee on Appropriations pass out favorably the Kansas State School for the Deaf budgets for 2026 and 2027.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion, second by Representative Mosier. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, committee, that completes all of the work that we have this morning, and so until tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., we are adjourned.